They're really good up front. They got a good linebacking core. They're a good coach team. We're just going to have to bring our A game against them. It's going to be a tough environment, but, we're ready for it. So.
We weren't happy with, the loss at Michigan State. So all the teams moving forward are just going to have to pay for, the spots we had to lose. So that's really just how we feel.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon live. I have got my producer right here at the door. I got to let him in. Hang on. Kind of feel like a quick change at the basketball game. There he is, the producer. Louis in studio. Good afternoon. We're ready to get things underway on this afternoon live. Yeah, it's live. That was some live stuff going on. Hey, we're ready to talk about everything that's going on up to the second here with Michigan. And we got a lot to talk about, including Michigan football, which is going to be in action coming up, as you know, at Penn State this weekend. And tonight, the college basketball season tips up. We got a nice little double header. And then tomorrow, it's close enough to opening night where Michigan is raising a banner. Their 2021 men's Big Ten championship banner will go up to the rafters there at the Chrysler Center. That's going to be a great game, obviously, to be at, to see the banner to go up to the rafters. Think about last year for a couple seconds and then get on to this year and this year's team. We'll be talking about the expectations for this year's team under Juwan Howard, and also kind of the same thing what's going on with Michigan against Penn State and where they sit right now. So that's what we have for you. We'll get to some feedback. The question of the day surrounded the Michigan basketball team and people's expectations for them. We will have the Michigan recruiting spotlight. It centers on a highly ranked 5-star cornerback out of California who took a big trip to Tuscaloosa this weekend. We have the memorabilia minute. That sound there at the beginning of the broadcast, that was Michigan guard Trevor Keegan talking about Penn State. And we also had Taylor Upshaw, who had an awesome game, especially in the second half. Pressures, TFLs for big number 91. He was flying all over the place, Taylor Upshaw, and he was talking about making teams pay. That sounds good to me. Make them pay, starting with, they already made Indiana pay. Let's see if they can make Penn State pay up for coming into Michigan Stadium last year and winning that game. So that would be some good stuff. Well, let's start things off here, though. We talk about what's going on with Michigan. And I think the first thing, go back to yesterday, we were playing some of the news conference that Jim Harbaugh had, his Monday presser. And I talked a little bit about what he had to say about the question about the Big Ten officials. And we will get to that. Also talking about red zone opportunities. Let's get first things first. Here was Harbaugh talking about red zone opportunities. I want to thank Channel 7 and Brad Galley, because this is where I got the audio from of Harbaugh talking about when they get inside the 20.
And, there's been some real improvement in this team of getting into the scoring zone. I mean, that was an issue last year, being at midfield, 45, 40-yard line and not being able to get it. Nothing I hate worse than punting from the 40-yard line. And we always want to get those balls into the end zone, score the touchdown. But also, Jake Moody's having a heck of a year.
Yeah, you hear that, and I know sometimes the people laugh. Yeah, get to Jake Moody territory. That's a really big deal. Michigan's just got they're on the verge. Actually, I saw the publisher at the Maize and Blue Review here, Josh Henschke, putting in a forecast for a kicker for the Wolverines, and I saw somebody reply, just what Josh Gaddis's offense needs, a really good kicker. A little fun. And we'll see if that happens, but as we sit here, and I was just thinking about Jim Harbaugh the last 24 hours. Last year, after the first game against Minnesota, I really liked the first game against Minnesota, that night game. But after that, I really didn't like the rest of the season. Even that win against Rutgers, it was more of a relief. It was a grueling game there. And the whole thing, it was great that they played football, but it was, I think you understood why people were down and maybe down on the coach a little bit. But this year, whether it's a fresh start, new coaches, all of those things, where Michigan is sitting right now with 3 games to go, and with the head coach, they're doing all right. It's not perfect. It could have been perfect. They could have beaten Michigan State, but they haven't. But I do go back to the card of, if you'd have told me before the season that Michigan would be heading into their final 3 games and they would just have 1 loss and they would be pretty much a pick 'em to go to Penn State, how would you feel about that scenario? And I'd say, I'd take it. I would take it every time. And I think every single person would take it. And when it comes down, red zone efficiency is one of the issues here with the Michigan team. And if they were one of the best teams in the red zone in the Big Ten, I don't think they'd have any losses. And if they were one of the best red zone teams in the Big Ten, I think I would feel like they could not only beat Penn State, but they could beat Ohio State. They're not. But is there room for them to do that? I think, Harbaugh makes a good point. It's, getting down to the red zone still is nice. Getting in a situation where you can score points, moving the ball, not going 3 and out, or not just getting a first down or 2 and then having to punt. I don't like punting. Like Mike DeBoer, offensive coordinator, an analyst, for the Michigan football team, just up to recently, maybe still. I remember he infamously said on the radio that he punts a good play, a good offensive play. I was like, nobody liked hearing Mike DeBoer say that, but and so you just keep always upping it. Ultimately, you'd like to take it down, score a touchdown. We all understand that. You like drives that are able to get you down into the scoring range. And if Michigan is able to up their efficiency in the red zone, they will have a very good chance to beat Penn State. And if they are really good in the red zone, they'll have a chance to beat Ohio State. And I haven't talked about beating Ohio State at least for 2 years, but I'm talking about it right now. But that's the one thing that I'm thinking about, being good in the red zone. And I think that, that they'll have a good chance to beat Ohio State. So that's what Jim Harbaugh had to say. The other thing, which is, I think in a 48 hour news cycle this week from what Harbaugh had to say at his press conference yesterday. And then it'll be certainly some off-season rivalry fodder. When you go back, when it's over a week and you go back and you're talking about officiating of a game, your rivals' ears are going to perk up and it's going to trigger them and they're going to go crazy, especially if that rival always feels like they're disrespected, even when they beat you. This is exactly what happened yesterday when Harbaugh was asked if he had heard from the Big Ten replay or Big Ten officials about what happened in the game regarding officiating. And predictably, the Spartans went nuts. And I also think predictably some of the Michigan media was like, why's everybody getting on Jim Harbaugh? He's just answering the question. Well, Jim Harbaugh answers a lot of questions. He doesn't always answer every one of them. So let's just hear the exchange yesterday that Jim Harbaugh, it was an exchange. Not like it was some heated exchange. It was just a question at a press conference by Angelique Chingelis from the Detroit News, and he answered it. And here's what he had to say. I've got this audio from the Wolverines Wire.
Yeah, as we all expected, all saw, mistakes were made.
So you heard from
That was the
them?
response. Yeah, they made a mistake.
They made a mistake on that call?
Yeah, and others.
Okay. So they said they made mistakes on other calls?
Yes.
Okay. So let's be clear.
Can't be any more clear than that.
All right, so there he is, and that has a lot of people talking, not only locally but nationally. And you know what? Things that Jim Harbaugh have to say here locally, of course, they're going to be talked about. And somewhat surprisingly, people are always like, "Why does everybody nationally, jumping on Jim Harbaugh? Why are they going over Jim Harbaugh?" He came in and made a lot of waves. shot off a lot of tweets, tried a lot of different things. And so when you do that and you get response from people, anybody that gets a lot of response, whether it's positive or negative, people are going to continue to talk about them. And, Jim Harbaugh is one of those guys. So, yeah, people were going to talk all about what he had to say there. And with Angelique, she said that she had followed up and talked to Harbaugh. Here's the tweet. I wish I would have put it up. Let's see. I can barely read. I'll read it for you. Angelique says, spoke briefly this evening with Jim Harbaugh regarding his comments today about the Big Ten officiating response. Quote, I'm built for being forthright and honest. I was asked a question and answered it honestly and forthrightly. All right. So there's Harbaugh giving a follow-up to what he had to say about the Big Ten officials. Now, look, Jim Harbaugh is asked a lot. This was a little bit surprising from the Michigan media. They were all like, Jim Harbaugh was just asked a question and he answered it. Jim Harbaugh is asked a lot of questions and he doesn't answer a lot of them. And I think in this spot, like, this isn't like, I like Jim Harbaugh. I just talked about like being in the position they are with only one loss with 3 games to go. He's turned things around in my mind as we sit here right now. We'll see what happens in these last 3 games and how all that works. You know how a loss can make you feel, but where Michigan sits right now, you have to be pretty happy if you're a Michigan fan. I just don't think that what Harbaugh had to say there, I don't think he did himself any favors, whether he was being honest or not. In that press conference yesterday, the theme of it, he was asked at one point about an 86 Ohio State game, the game after Minnesota where he made the guarantee. It's like one of the most famous Michigan football stories, guarantees certainly, in the history of the program. And Jim Harbaugh, we're going to go down there in Columbus and win the game. And then, they did. And Jim's point was, look, I'm focused in. I'm not going back and rehashing things. And yet here he was over a week on going back and rehashing something. And so, like, if I was his advisor, like, this doesn't mean I'm being negative towards Jim Harbaugh or the football program. It doesn't mean I'm piling on him. If I was his advisor and he came to me and said, hey, how do you think I should answer this question? Because I did talk to the Big Ten replay officials. You know what I told Jim? I said, hey, Jim, tell everybody that, you're looking forward. You'd already played a game since that game, and you're putting all your focus on Penn State and the practices and reps that you got going on today. Don't bring up officiating. There's a couple of things that if you follow sports. It doesn't matter if you're a Michigan fan or an Alabama fan or a fan anywhere. Is that you can't use in sports even if it is a reason, you can't use injuries and referees as an excuse. And so stay away from those 2 things. Like, it's kind of like 101. Don't do that. I think the other thing, as long as I live, people always say death, taxes, and bad calls by officials. We're always going to get those. And I didn't like the call. I thought the idea of irrefutable, clear, concise, visual evidence was completely lacking in the Ajabo strip of the Hutchinson touchdown. I mean, come on. Like, that would be the definition if they were teaching referees, like, look, let's put this one up. This one, we really don't know what's happening here. That's why we're going to move on and go with a call on the field. That's what they should do. But those officials didn't. And what you get is sometimes you get officials here who want to over officiate. And instead of using what they all say needs to be clear, concise, irrefutable, visual evidence to overturn something, becomes, hey, if we can do anything to get in there and change it, we will. And when it comes to reviews, and this has not been going on for 1 or 2, this has been going on, with high defs. We've been sitting here for 20 years. At least 15. Let's talk about 10, where everybody's got the TVs and they can take a look at it. The last 10 years, there have been hundreds of calls like that one we've seen at Spartan Stadium that have been overturned, where they are, we could take 100 people and nobody's agreeing, unless you're, a Michigan or Michigan State fan, but it was the definition of being a close call. But, Jim Harbaugh, there's There's no reason to, fire up if you're a Michigan fan defending him on that. And he can make mistakes at a news conference by going there, but does it really matter as it affects this team moving forward? Not really. This is just midweek after a Monday press conference fodder for against a rival that they're going to be triggered about because they didn't get their ultimate respect, and they want you to bend down on a knee and, tell them how great they were as you, lost to them on their field. And, they're upset because they're behind you in the rankings and all those things. So all of that plays into it, but those are my thoughts on what Harbaugh had to say yesterday at his press conference. And to tighten it up a little bit, I don't think he's doing himself any favors when he goes out there and his whole point is that he's moving forward and focusing on Penn State, and yet he's going back and talking about the officials against Michigan State. So whether he's honest or not, you don't have to be honest and forthright and everything. And let's just be clear. Jim Harbaugh's asked a lot of questions that he's not forthright on every single time that a microphone is in front of his face. So I don't know. Is it a big thing? No, but it was talked about in the 24-hour news cycle, especially with so many Michigan State fans jumping around and in the media and just looking for something to get hot about. They were able to get hot about it. All right, we've got one more thing football-wise before we get on to basketball. And basketball, we'll get to in a second with it being opening night. But Michigan's chances at Penn State, pretty good. You just have a 1-point line for Penn State. Penn State was in a 3-point game at Ohio State 2 weeks ago. Early in the season, watching Penn State go to Wisconsin. If you watched that game, Wisconsin had 2 opportunities late in that game, right in the end zone. It's a 1-score game. They could have won that one. They played Wisconsin tough. They played Ohio State tough. The Illinois game, I would put as an outlier. I'm expecting the Penn State team that I saw play Ohio State 2 weeks ago. I'm not expecting the Penn State team that took Illinois lightly or that played Illinois to a 9 overtime eventual loss. I'm not expecting to see that Penn State team. They'll be up for Michigan, and they'll play their best there. So I think this it looks like it's going to be a fourth quarter type game. Right after Saturday's game, watching the performance of Hassan Haskins and Cade McNamara and looking at the final 3 games, my thought was, you know what? Ride the hot hands and the hot hand of Hassan Haskins, and also give Cade McNamara the full complement of plays, and don't go with the JJ plan in this game unless there's an emergency. As the days have gone on here, people have pointed out to me that Cade might need that relief because he might be dealing with something. If you go back to the Michigan State game, Jim Harbaugh, the reason that McCarthy was put back in there after he fumbled the ball was because Cade was working through something. Now, he didn't say what. Something. An injury. So I don't know. He was working through something. When you don't have all of that information, well, maybe Cade had to go to the bathroom, and I don't know what it was. Whatever it was, and then he got popped pretty good this past Saturday, and had to leave when they were down there in the end zone. And then JJ McCarthy came in and he took a sack, and the announcer said, McNamara's limping off the field. Again, maybe another situation here where it's not just a plan. It's one of these where, Cade's fighting through some things. One of the themes yesterday, or at least one of the questions that was talked about, was pain threshold. Maybe that has to do with Cade McNamara fighting through some things, and JJ can be there to go in. Not, looking to speculate on injuries or anything else, just talking about it, talking about what I've seen out there. And if you're going to be a little bit vague, which is your right as a head coach, with the answer to the question about, why McCarthy was in there, Cade was working through something. Well, here we are. Talking about the quarterback rotation again, that could be a chance that he could be working through something again. All right, as we take the turn and talk about college basketball, it tips up tonight. You got Coach K's retirement tour, which will start as Duke takes on Kentucky. Before that, up in East Lansing, Michigan State, who was outside looking in the NCAA tournament last year, as they had to play in a play-in game. Now they're in the game tonight, which is the showcase against a top 10 team, top 5 team in Kansas, with Tom Izzo's teams on the outside looking into the top 25. So that's what's going on with Michigan State. And it's not too far away tomorrow, where Michigan is going to be taking on Buffalo and raising the banner. Juwan Howard was asked just a little while ago down at the Chrysler Center what he thought of this Buffalo Bulls team that he'll have to face in the opener tomorrow.
One of their biggest strengths is their offensive rebounding and also the way how they put pressure on the basket. A well-coached team as well. You know, you have to add that. As you've seen the past history on that team as far as what they've done over the past years with the success of the program and winning the MAC, and also picked to win the MAC this year. So we're looking forward to a very competitive game on Wednesday.
Wednesday, which is tomorrow at Chrysler. Yeah, talking about Buffalo coming in, I would look at the preseason coaches poll. The Mid-American Conference has 12 teams, and Buffalo got 11 out of the 12 first-place votes in the preseason to win the MAC. Buffalo also put 2 players on the preseason All-MAC team, both seniors. So they got an experienced team that is expected to win the Mid-American Conference. And, you know, you see MAC and you're like, automatically, Michigan should win that game. And they say, ooh, you got a veteran Buffalo team that almost unanimously was picked to win the Mid-American Conference. And this could be, I don't know yet what Seton Hall is going to bring to the table, or UNLV, both games that Michigan is going to be playing next week. A 9 o'clock affair against Seton Hall. And then if I got this right, a 12:30 a.m. tip out in Vegas. I don't know what those 2 teams are bringing to the table, but I do know that Buffalo was everything that I just said. So this could be Michigan basketball's toughest game until, let's see, I don't even know anything about Tarleton. I didn't know that was a university. North Carolina, the Big Ten ACC championship, that's not, or Big Ten ACC challenge. That doesn't take place until December 2nd. So, yeah, I think that this probably will be Michigan's toughest test of the month until you get to that North Carolina game. So we'll see about that. Now, I asked people on the Wolverine Den, that is part of the Maize and Blue Review, TMBR message boards, the Wolverine Den. I put the question out there, what kind of year are you expecting from the U of M basketball team? And let's get to some of those responses here. And Hail to Your Victor wrote in, I expect us to go into the tournament with 5 or less losses. Land a 1 or 2 seed. Make a Final Four. From there, I'll cross my fingers. There's a handful of loaded teams this year, as strong up top as any time since I followed the sport. The combination of super seniors like Brooks, getting to stay an extra year, and an immediate transfer like Jones has helped out a lot of teams, and this freshman class is expected to be really good. Yeah, having Eli Brooks come back. He played as a freshman, so it's not a 6th year, but this is a 5th year for Eli Brooks. He is a super senior. He is getting 5 years of playing. It's great to have him back. And you're right, just like Mike Smith last year came in as a transfer, and I'll add Sean D. Brown. I remember at this time last year when those 2 guys were coming in, I didn't know. Sean D. was a 10-5 guy at Wake Forest. But when I first saw him, the guy's got an NBA body. And he was everything and more that you could have expected from Sean D. Brown. If you can love a player for 1 year on a team, you love Sean D. Brown. And I'd say the same thing with Mike Smith. Came in, diminutive point guard. I thought, watched some of his tape at Columbia where he scored 36. And I thought a crafty Xavier Simpson or that I was looking at when I saw, or Derek Walton, a crafty Derek Walton when I saw Mike Smith. I remember my initial read on him, but those guys were wonderful, and it was a fantastic season last year. And Devontae Jones is expected to be as good or better than Mike Smith. So yeah, a combination of a transfer portal, keeping guys around as seniors, and in this case, a super senior and Eli Brooks, and then recruiting well and having those guys hit. Last year's recruiting class, awesome. This year's recruiting class, rivals, they were top 3. I know Memphis jumped in there, late and took over the number 1 spot with the local product, Amani Bates, going there. But Juwan Howard's got this team going and rolling. More from the feedback from the Wolverine Den on the expectations for the Michigan basketball team. This is from Mish FN1, fan number 1. I'm thinking struggle some early, lost a lot from last year, still will contend for the league title and make the tournament. Yeah, I think contending for the league title, there's 5 teams in the preseason top 25. Michigan at 6, Purdue at 7. Where we got Illinois, Ohio State, Maryland, Michigan State's not in there. I'll put Michigan State. I mean, Michigan State would be 26 if there was a top 26, but they're not. So they're not in the top 25. But the conference 5-6 teams there, pretty tough. This runs from Go Blue 532. Go Blue 532 says, I expect strugglers early, probably earning a 4 or 5 seed in the tournament as a result. Struggles early. Hail to your victor. I think the national perspective that we are young is erroneous. Yes, we'll be playing freshmen a lot, but on the flip side, we start Jones, Brooks, Johns, Dickinson, who have a lot of experience. I'm in on that. Philly Sam. Indiana 75-76. This is his expectations. The Indiana 75-76 team went undefeated. The last team to go undefeated. I am not expecting Michigan to go undefeated, but, oh, man, that would be awesome. G-Dog 67 on expectations for the Michigan basketball team. This is a long one. I expect Hunter's level of improvement to be the biggest key this season. He shocked the basketball world with his early success, and this early dominance dramatically raised our team's level of success. Our opponents came up with adjustments, and while he was still very good, he did not dominate as quite the first half level. Many are referring to his performance from the 3 as being a key. I believe that his ability to finish his post moves to the right, to shoot his set shot accurately from 10 to 15, and to pass more effectively out of double teams will be more important factors. If he hits the 3, that'll be great. But the other factors must come to enable our other 4 on the court to flourish. All right, that was a lot there from G-Dog 67, and I like what he had to say. I think out of all of that, I don't think the key is going to be Hunter Dickinson out there shooting 3s. Now, I think if he goes out there and having early success in 3 is going to be fine, and then he can continue to do that. But I've seen with a lot of evolution of big men who all right, they're starting to shoot 3s, and boy, they shoot them in practice, taking it to the game, are 2 different things. If he gets off to a good start, I could see that being a component of his game, but I could also see, getting out to a 0 for 3, 0 for 2, 0 for 12 something, and then just saying, okay, maybe something I can work on and continue to work on in practice, but, not in the bigger games. I think what you said, though, I think passing, if I had to hit on one of those things, I think passing out of the double teams, it will be the biggest thing for Hunter Dickinson. When Michigan plays any other team this year, and you're the opposing coach, the first thing they do when they talk about, we got Michigan coming up next, is they say, what are we going to do with Hunter Dickinson? You cannot. There might be a handful of teams in college basketball this year that can go in there and say, we're just going to play him straight up. Everybody else is going to have to start running guys at him. Start running guys at him. Hunter Dickinson being able to either step through or power through some of those double teams and exploit it, or getting the ball out and passing it around the outside and allowing Michigan shooters to have open shots. I mean, to me, that's the great value of having somebody that demands a double team in the post. And I thought the first game they lost last year, Minnesota, that was the thing that Minnesota exploited. Of course, they went to the hard double. Hunter had to have a hard time, but in that particular game, a few instances where they got his hand in the passing lane, deflected the ball, maybe grabbed it when he left it down low, and they also shot the lights out. But that was one of the things with Hunter Dickinson. Look, you know what? If he's the same player that he was last year, I mean, he was awesome. So I think, you get your natural progression, and just looking at him, I saw him in the offseason, some of the clips, either he or Michigan basketball had taken videos of him. He looks like whether he's lost some body fat or gained muscle, I think maybe a little bit of both. He looks a little bit lighter and stronger. That'll be good. And, he's a monster. Yeah, developing more post moves, not just, going over there on the left side of the block. I think all those are fair points. All right, we asked about what do you expect from the Michigan basketball team, and the Wolverine Den has responded with some answers. We've got Oregon Blue saying natty. And one more, a follow-up from Philly Sam. He says, I'm hoping for a Big Ten championship and a Final Four appearance. Here are his questions. I'll answer them as they come out. What big space the floor, aside from Houston, can Johns reliably hit three-pointers? Yeah, I don't know about reliably. I think I'm not expecting him to, hoist up many three-pointers, but some corner threes, do I think he might be able to make 2 a game? I think so, but I don't think that's going to be a huge factor of Johns hitting threes. I think, finding some outside shooting, though. Eli, Devontae, I think Caleb, are those going to be the 3 top three-point shooters for Michigan? I think so. So after that, you are going to be looking for somebody, that in the next exhibition season, I think maybe a quiet three-point shooter. He rose and fired with confidence and authority was Terrence Williams. I liked how his shot looked, and he might be my 4th option. I don't think I'm missing anybody on that. Can Devontae Jones morph into a pass-first point guard as Mike Smith did? He answered the question last week about transitioning from Coastal Carolina to Michigan. He said it hadn't been that big of an adjustment. And he said, I'm a pass-first guy. So he's saying the right thing, and he looked like that in the exhibition. He wasn't coming down. His shot looks pretty good. Thing about Devontae Jones, when you're a point guard, that's your job. Get everybody in the right set, pass the ball around, orchestrate everything, get it down there to Hunter Dickinson, and then if need be, if you're standing out there in the corner and you're Devontae Jones and you have entered the ball down to Hunter Dickinson and the double team goes to it and they kick it out to Devontae Jones and he's standing down there in the corner, he's wide open, shoot it. But that is, you're Philly Sam, you're talking about pass first. He did pass first in that scenario. Now he gets an open G. So I think that can happen. A couple of the other from Philly Sam, who's throwing the questions out here, is TW ready for bigger minutes? I think so. They wanted to give him bigger minutes last year, but he's got the Big Ten body, and he's versatile enough where you see him being put in different positions. He has the trust of the coaches. They talk in glowing terms about him. So, yeah, I'm expecting a lot from Terrence Williams this year. Can HD Dickinson go to his right reliably and hit a 15-footer reliably in the course of a game? All right, I'll buy that one. I realize that you won't have the answers to these questions at this time, but that's what I'm looking forward to seeing once the season gets going. Philly Sam, I can tell you're a big Hoops fan. Yeah, I mean, I can't sit here and tell you like, well, yeah, Hunter, man, he's really been dropping him in practice. You watch Hunter Dickinson shoot in not a game situation, his shot looks good. His form looks good. He makes his fair amount, but when the lights go on and he's playing it, that's when it all comes down to it. Same thing that I mentioned with Terrence Williams. That's why in that exhibition game, when the first pass went out to him, it wasn't like, let me think about taking a shot. It was very confident stroke, and it looked good, and he knocked it down. So, yeah, there you go. All good questions coming in there on the Wolverine Den. We got time for 2 more things, and those are 2 segments that we do every day. One is the Michigan Recruiting Spotlight, and for this, we go to the Alabama-LSU game over the weekend. They brought in a bunch of different recruits, bunch of different visitors. One of those visitors was a highly rated defensive back out of Mater Dei in California, the 9th overall prospect in the Rivals 250, Damani Jackson. Now, Michigan has 17 commitments, and they are ranked 18 as we get close to this early signing period, which is, what is it, the 15th. So we're just a little over a month away from the early signing period. And a lot of Michigan fans are hoping that they're going to be able to flip Damani Jackson. Well, Jackson goes to Alabama. And as we sit here right now, if I'm making a top 3 for Damani Jackson, I've got USC number 1, where he is a commitment right now, but we know that they have an interim head coach who is their defensive backs coach, who Jackson loves and talks glowingly about. And if he is retained, I think that Jackson will stay at USC. Not a sure thing, but I think that's where he'll stay. After his trip to Tuscaloosa this weekend, I am putting Alabama at number 2. If there is a flip, the Crimson Tide, I would put as a favorite over Michigan right now. And then at Michigan, I'm not saying a distant third, but I'm going to say they're number 3 right now. And when you come off a visit and you're down there with the Tide, you can just imagine. I could just imagine what's going to be like. They're throwing all that bling in front of you, and Coach Saban's, taking you through, putting you through all the. I mean, it's got to be tough not to get wide-eyed if you're down there in Tuscaloosa and they walk you through Bama and start talking about how many players they have in the pros and championships and all of that. So tough to get guys and have them jump over Bama when it comes to the recruiting process. But as we sit here on this Tuesday with the Tide close that Monty Jackson brought back to California, still not washed. I would put Michigan at number 3 and number 2 in terms of flipping Damani Jackson before a little over a month from now in that early signing period. All right, it's time for the memorabilia minute. And I said that I was just going to go with things that were in close proximity of the studio here. I happened to go downstairs yesterday and I saw a cooler and I thought, well, what's in that cooler? I knew there was some memorabilia in there. So I cracked it open and sure enough, a bunch of magazines and pictures and things like that. So I'm going to Fithian's drawer here to pull out the memorabilia minute. A picture of Michigan linebacker Victor Hobson. And what I can tell you about this picture right here is that is Hobson's signature and the number 6. Great photo, great linebacker, went on to have an excellent NFL career. I think he played for both the New York teams. I know he played for the Jets. I think he played for the Giants too, but I'm sure he played for the Jets. But the thing you'll find with a lot of my Michigan memorabilia is that it comes from 1994 through 2005. That's when I worked in Ann Arbor, and I would, wherever it was, different places, I would sometimes find some things and say, hey, I'm giving that away. This could have come from the Big Ten tournament. The Big Ten media days. I think I went to 9 of those. And at the end of the media days, all the players will sit around these tables and I would say, hey, I get one of those pictures for a Michigan fan. Most of them I did give away, but as I found here in the drawer, I still have some that I did not. And this one today, Victor Hobson, Michigan linebacker. All right. That's going to do it for today's show. Tomorrow, big preview of the hoop season. Then, of course, the opener against Buffalo. It's a 6:30 start. 6:30 start. I'll be on after. I'll do one of these live, talk about the game 10 minutes after the game is over. So a little double shot tomorrow. I'll have an afternoon live at 1 o'clock. And then I'll come back 10 minutes after the game and talk about Michigan and Buffalo. So coming up on tomorrow's show, Michigan Hoops. We'll talk about their opener, the season on the hardwood. We'll get that much closer to Michigan and Penn State. So until then, have a great day. Thanks for watching TMBR TV and Afternoon Live.